particular group. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah,
I got to get my
go
hearing
get your hearing
aids.
aids.
We're
The
cartel.
Like
The cartel, like the...
Oh, like a cartel. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I have a shirt.
Well, actually, I don't need these. I'll just put in my
Okay.
my earphone, my headphone, earplugs, whatever the fuck. Come on. There's...
Yeah, crazy times. There you go. Can you hear us?
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hear me?
Yeah, I
Okay,
hear you.
let me turn you up. We're good. How you guys doing?
We're doing
Good.
okay.
Yeah. Where are you, Dakota?
I
You
mean,
just
Yeah, I'm back home now. I just got back like maybe 5 days ago.
yeah. Wow.
Came back just in time.
Yeah, just in time. Yeah.
Just in time for the revolution.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Far out. How long you were stuck there for a long time?
Since January. Yeah, I was in Peru since January.
Holy shit!
So almost the end of January. So almost 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
What did you wind up doing when you were there?
Well, I was staying at an ayahuasca center.
Uh huh.
I was doing some video work there. That my friend owns this center there called Arcana.
Uh huh.
And yeah, it got closed. It was like the whole quarantine happened while there was guests there, and they stayed for a couple days, and then they took a humanitarian flight out.
Oh.
And I was just gonna tough it out, and then it turns out they're not opening airports until October. So I just took one of those flights too. They were doing a couple more humanitarian flights to get the kind of rest of the people that were there.
Yeah.
To get us out, and I was like, well, I don't know how many more they're gonna be doing.
Yeah. And it's a long walk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long walk. Yeah, but it's sad. I miss being there already.
Ah.
And being back here in this crazy environment.
Yeah.
Like there's super shanty. I'm in the mountains. Unless I check my phone, I don't really know anything's going on in the world.
That's an interesting place to be.
Yeah. And I was living with these guys from the jungle. They speak Shipibo. That's the tribe they're from, the Shipibo tribe. So we were just they just drink ayahuasca sometimes. And yeah, I mean it's kind of how you would imagine being in a global pandemic at an ayahuasca center, and it's about as crazy as it sounds.
Wow.
Yeah, what about you? Where are you at?
I'm home.
In New York, right?
I'm home. I haven't been home this long. I literally, I can't remember. I mean, it's over 30, 40 years that I haven't been home for more than a month, you know. It's amazing.
wow.
So it's,
How's it feel?
you know, another 3 or 4 years and I'd probably be okay. You know, personally, for me, it's fantastic, you know. I'm sitting more, I feel like this crust around my heart is kind of slowly crumbling off, and I'm walking, I'm doing asana, so it's good for me, it's good for the body, it's good for everything. I'm just breathing again, you know. It's really, I've been full-time for 25 years, I've been on the road, really, full-time. And before that, I was also always traveling, so this is it's like all new, you know.
Yeah, it's a good break for the whole world.
Well, for some people it's very difficult because all of us...
You're not having an income?
Having a mind.
Losing their mind.
having a mind, really, you become aware of you know, your bullshit. You can't avoid it anymore, so...
Right.
And if you don't have tools to deal with that, or an understanding of how to deal with that, it can get pretty heavy, you know, and people get angry and upset and they act out and they hurt other people.
And they start riots.
Well,
Yeah.
that's one thing, but sure, that's a whole other ball game. But still, in that time, at this time, that there should be these kind of situation is amazing. It's kind of all part of one huge flow of negativity that's manifesting all around.
Yeah.
A really intense time. A lot of suffering.
Yeah. What do you think about all the big social movement that's happening right now? They said this is the biggest civil rights movement in history. This stuff that's going on
Really?
right now. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's human rights. I mean, we're recognizing we're human beings, and these are human beings who are our brothers and sisters and family that have been abused for so long, and for the most part, we haven't been paying attention. So in that way, it's a fantastic situation for people to step up and as Spike said, do the right thing, whatever that means to each individual. But you're forced to deal with it in one way or another. So even though it's painful, I think in the long run, that's a really good thing. And hopefully, racism is so deeply ingrained in the world. I mean, the English, what they did in India, unbelievable. What happens everywhere, this culture, this group in the culture. In India, there's the caste system, even though it's not officially, it's supposed to be gone. It's not gone. It's in the cultural awareness of everyone, and so many other places, everywhere there's discrimination. So if this is a way to purify that racism that's endemic to the whole world, I mean, it's hard, It's like what do you call it? When you break a boil, it hurts, but you have to. It has to be broken. It has to be open to release all the negativity that's in there, all the pain. So it's a big thing.
How many of these movements have you lived through? This keeps this. I mean,
Well,
just because just in my
three or four
lifetime,
movements a day, on a good day.
It just seems there's such a pattern of this repetition of these movements happening.
It's funny.
And things that's.
I was channel surfing the other night, and I saw Conan was talking to that guy from the band. I forget his name. He was a great musician, but where am I? But Conan was saying, he said, white people really. He said, we did this in the 70s and the 60s. Mm-hmm. We thought it was done. We didn't, and then we didn't notice after that, So now we're being forced to notice. Everybody's being forced to notice that was a good beginning, and now we need a good middle, and then we have to end this somehow. And it's not going to be easy because it's so hard to change the way a person sees the world. Like when I was in Auschwitz with Bernie Glassman to bear witness to the suffering. We went there with a model, with a spiritual practice to do, which was to bear witness, which means you have to drop your own stuff. You have to bear witness. It means you have to see, really clearly see what's there, what happened, what's happening. And you can't be projecting your own stuff onto it, even your own sadness or anything. I mean, you're there to bear witness to the souls who are there. So one of the things, so I walked around pissed off, for like days. We're in Auschwitz all day long, singing, praying, meditating, walking, being in Auschwitz, from morning till evening. And I was walking around, and it was the fall, it was November, and all the trees were orange, yellow, it was amazing red, and the grass was so green, the sun was shining. And I was like, how do you fucking dare shine on this place? I literally was yelling at the sun for days. How dare you shine on this place? How can you do that? And I yelled and yelled and yelled. And then I finally realized it's the nature of the sun to shine on everything. The good, the bad, everything. That's what the sun does. And that's the nature of unconditional love. Unconditional love. So when Maharajji says love everyone, it doesn't mean you approve of their negative actions. You don't approve of situations that create suffering for other people, or for animals, or for plants, anything. You don't approve of suffering, but but there are deeper levels of awareness that are within us that we can move into, and so love doesn't mean accepting torture. It doesn't mean accepting the bad stuff. It means recognizing that there's a soul in there who's not different than you, but because of the way they were brought up and their karmic situation, they are creating suffering for others and themselves, that the fruits of which are unavoidable. I mean, the people who are creating pain and suffering for others, each one of us has to live through our own karma. So when you look out at the situation, you have to give it space to be what it is, and then you have to still be able to do whatever you can to alleviate the suffering. That's difficult for most people, because most people only live in their emotions, and they don't have any way to let any other way to live in the world and to act and react except emotionally. And when you're in those emotions those buttons get pushed, you start making decisions based on those feelings, and it just builds and builds and builds and gets worse and worse and worse. So you don't go around saying to everybody, to the protests, "Oh no, love everybody, go home." Why would you do that? That's not the point. The point is that we are all, they say, that we are all cells of one being. We're not separate from each other. We are all a part of one being. So why would you hurt your toe? Your toe is a part of you. Other people are a part of you. So by hurting other people, you're hurting yourself. But people don't understand that. I don't understand that. I just have heard that from the masters. So it's a lot of it. The point is, there's so much to deal with on so many levels in these situations. And if the goal is to free yourself and to free others of suffering, you have to jump into this, and you have to deal with it the best you can. You can't avoid it. And I think that's what in America, in our culture, I think there are many people of all colors who have not wanted to deal with this. And now we have to, because this is the moment. We didn't choose this, but this is what's happening, so we need to deal with it. Absolutely. So.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like some kind of cultural cry out to recognize that we're all experiencing something as a collective. Because it does seem bigger than just police brutality. Like me and JR were talking about it, and it seems like this is just a sickness that is, this is the defense, the white blood cells coming to try to cure itself.
Yeah, I mean,
and it'll keep happening. This is, I'm sure, it's a cycle of just growth and evolution and these sort of things.
Yeah.
I'm sure this isn't the last time this will happen.
No, it isn't. This kind of thing goes on forever, because each generation gets reprogrammed again with the same hatred and the same tiny subjective vicious little version of reality, and that's passed on to the children. So what I was going to say was that one of the other things that I experienced when I was at Auschwitz with Bernie, and it was important to be there with Bernie for me, because Bernie his presence allowed for me to let go of my stuff and witness, which is we were there to bear witness. So, I'm talking about Bernie Glassman, right, the Zen master. So one of the things that happened is one day I just realized that, wait a minute, if I had been born to a family of Nazis in Nazi Germany at that time and raised as a Nazi, how could I prove? I could not prove to myself that I would not have done what those guards in Auschwitz did to those people. I couldn't prove that to myself because I'm not any better than anybody else. If I had been born there and taught that and believed that, why wouldn't I believe it? That was the point, right? There wasn't the internet where you could read about what everybody else was doing. And even these days, people only read what they want to read anyway, which just reinforces their own subjective bullshit. So I was astounded at that feeling that I had because I went, oh shit, how can I... So those people were also victims of their own karmas, of the karma of being born and taught that way about life. So it's the same here in America. There are many people here in America who were brought up to hate other people based on the color of their skin. They brought up that from a kid. They see their parents doing that. They think it's true. They think it's real. How is that going to change very fast? So it's a big issue, So we have to do what we can now in the social action area and change the government and change the politics and change the way things are done. But how do you change what's inside somebody's head, when they're brought up that way? They're brought up to think green is red. And if you say, no, green is green. Come on, green looks like this. This is green. Hey, fuck off, man, this is green. There's no way you can, But then again, there is a way, which is called suffering. Which means getting that thrown in your face, just like it's happening right now.
Right.
And then you realize you have the way you deal with this situation, you're forced to deal with it. And either it polarizes you more, or that part of you that is essentially good in its truth, comes up and recognizes what's going on. Then you have to deprogram yourself from those kind of feelings that you thought were true. So it's a big thing. It's multi-level, inside, outside, all around.
Yeah, it almost seems divinely written in a way.
Yeah, we lost him.
We lost you. There you are.
You lost
You're
him?
back. Yeah.
Check. Yeah, I don't know. It just all seems very divinely inspired, all of this. Like it seems very unpredictably predictable. All these events just keep on falling one after another.
Yeah, well,
I was joking today. I was joking today with my cousin about what was next in the program. Like, are we gonna have aliens come in August, and then like in September it's gonna be like another gigantic event, and it's like we signed up for a subscription package for 2020, and it's like I'm not a fan of this year.
Yeah.
No, I'm here for it. It's exciting on the very least, and it's historic. It feels. It would be good if aliens landed. Yeah.
They've landed.
You think so?
They were here before us.
You think?
The definition of aliens is up for grabs, but beings who don't inhabit this particular planet, They certainly exist, but they don't exist the way we think they do.
How do they exist, you think?
You know, I never really even thought of this, but do we really think that we're the only... Well, first of all, we think we're sentient beings. That's a big joke in itself. We think we're conscious, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Barely, you know.
Yeah.
We look at a turtle and we think, oh, that, you know, that's how enlightened beings look at us, you know. These poor people, they think they're aware, you know, they're completely asleep. So, and you know, I don't think aliens exist the way we think they do, but I think the universe is so massively, extraordinarily, in terms of the way we see distance and space. It's like, you know.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Really.
So do you think like Shiva or Krishna or like these types of mythologies are aliens?
I don't know if you call them alien. I think they exist on a different plane of consciousness. Whether you,
So kind of, it's like an interdimensional intelligence?
I don't know. I guess you could say that.
Because it would exist on a dimension that's outside ours but can still perceive us?
Yeah, it's like, what do we see with our senses and our eyes? We see 7 colors, right? It's like there's 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 other colors.
Right.
That those beings who live in those worlds see. It includes our colors.
And do you think it's possible to make contact with them? Through things like maybe meditation or ayahuasca or these things that kind of are trance-inducing states?
You know, I'd like to make contact with myself first.
Yeah.
And then I could worry about if I'm contacting
The
anyone
aliens?
or anything else, you know. Let me find out who I am.
Terence McKenna said something once. He said that the self is so alien that when we communicate with it, it needs to take the form of an alien just not to alarm us of its true self.
That would be very compassionate of it.
Yeah.
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 I've thought about that. You know, people take DMT and then they see these interdimensional beings, so they call them aliens.
Shiva,
And
Ganesh.
they're full of compassion, and you know, they seem just like Maharajji, and I'm like,
So the issue with all that,
Yeah.
and what's problematic with that, is that you still think you are the one seeing those things. See?
What do you mean?
So what you're seeing is simply the projection of your own mind.
And how
Yeah.
far does that extend? Does that extend
Exactly.
to...
That extends from your first breath to your last, period, and then onward.
So this
You're not-
is this
when-
conversation a projection of all of ourselves or myself?
all right, I took a
Okay.
philosophy class. I'll bite.
Yeah, give it to us, man. Hit us.
You basically there's an outside world that you perceive through your senses, but you only have 5 senses, and maybe your mind being another sense allows you to imagine that there's something out here, like you don't really know for sure. There's this thing called like brain in a vat idea that was a long time ago, but it's basically a simulation theory of like the idea that, you know, you're in the Matrix and you're not really moving around, you know. Your brain's just, or your consciousness is just sitting in one spot hallucinating that it's moving around. Like that's a potential thing that you can't disprove because of the situation that we've been put in. We just can't prove that there's anything out there. We only sense it.
Yeah, we are definitely in an interesting predicament, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's all based on the fact that we think we are who we think we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get.
If we did,
So
if those thoughts of me never arose, there'd only
what
be
would
consciousness.
what would happen if that didn't happen? If there wasn't something that's taking on a desire to be attached to things or taking on some sense of identity, would there be an experience at that point?
Absolutely. Total open space, everything within it, that incredibly vast space, vast presence. And you would be moving around, but you would experience that you weren't moving, that there was no coming or going. And you would see, you would still see other beings. They look like other beings, but there'd be no evaluating going on about those beings. It's just like there. And you'd be actually out of your own way for the first time in your life. And you'd be freed from the limitations that we impose upon ourselves vibrationally. I'm me, and this is what I like, and this is what I don't like, and this guy is scary, this woman is pretty, this guy's, it's all the stuff we're doing all the time, the evaluating, that disappears. And there's just like, what there is Sat Chit Ananda. That's what they call it. Or Buddha nature. Or the soul. There's presence, there's being. And there's freedom. Because there's no... because the glue that holds us to our thoughts is gone, been dissolved. And so thoughts come and go, but they don't think us. It's a whole other ballgame. And it's completely inclusive of all beings, of all space. And there's only love and compassion and kindness and peace. Incredible peace.
Why do you think it plays out in the way that it plays out? So if this is some kind of eternal truth, that there's a peace that is kind of lying beyond the grasp of our senses, why does it play out in this drama of being me and going through the suffering and going through social movements? And
because that's what the idea of karma is. Everything we see, think, and feel right at this moment is a result of everything we've ever thought or felt in our millions of lifetimes. Right now, we are projecting, and we're born into this wavelength that we share with other beings that are born into this wavelength. So we share that with people. There are beings who aren't on this wavelength, like we were talking about before. But the people we see are the people who share this wavelength based on their own karmic predicament. And even though you can want to love everyone, you still have all those knee-jerk reactions that are in your subtle bodies that force you to judge and choose and pick this one and reject that one and see this way and even think about yourself. Even the karma determines where you were born and when you were born and to whom you were born. So,
what is the first karma?
That's what it says. There's a hymn in the first Veda, the Rig Veda, the number one first Veda. There's a hymn called the Creation Hymn, and it goes. It's not very long, but it goes. In the beginning, there was this, and then this, and this, and this, and this, and this happened, and then that happened because that happened, and it goes on, and then it says, and why? What is this? Why is this? How did... It said, only he in highest heaven knows. Or maybe he doesn't. It really says that. Go look it up, the Creation Hymn in the Rig Veda.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So, it's above our pay grade.
Yeah.
Way above our pay grade. And it might be above the pay grade of even he in highest heaven.
Yeah.
Of why and how this happened.
It's just such a strange experience to just wake up in a body and have no idea how you got there. And then we're just here left like running around theorizing about it. It adds an extra layer to the fact that we can talk about how weird it is. That's an extra layer to the weirdness.
Just more
remember-
stuff.
Yeah, just after this stuff.
Different spices
Yeah. What'd you say, JR?
in the stew.
Oh, I remember being maybe like 8 or 9 and sitting on the playground
Smoking
and
cigarettes?
just like kind of no.
That was until 10. We weren't then yet.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about what it was like before I was alive, and it was giving me kind of an existential fear at that age too. But that thought of like before you were conscious is kind of a scary thought, and I feel like it might be what we return to, but I don't know. But I think that I don't know why I was just thinking about that as something to reflect on when you're I don't know where I'm going with this. It's something to reflect on.
You're saying the state of when before you were conscious?
Yeah, the state before you were conscious. Like, just, you can't even really remember it.
I
You
guess
can
it
only
kind of
really
be like
imagine
deep
it.
sleep,
But it's
right?
just a thought.
Like the state.
But there's still
Maybe,
there's still awareness in deep sleep. If there wasn't awareness, then that sleep would never end. I mean,
Yeah, you wouldn't breathe.
So when you say before I was conscious, but you're only
Before I was born.
well, yeah, but there was still awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness is what they call the in Buddhism they don't theoretically they say they don't believe in a self. What they mean is a permanent thing that but they do have this thing called the sublime continuum, which is what goes.
Sounds like a loophole.
It goes from life to life. In other words, it's not a thing. It's like an awareness around which your stuff gets it's like a magnet field that pulls your stuff in, and everybody has their own sublime continuum, which is a way of saying they have their own individual karmic flow.
I heard the Dalai Lama when he was asked about like would somebody reincarnate into artificial intelligence, and he thought it was possible, and he described it as like their stream of consciousness would slip into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is artificial intelligence conscious of itself?
It could get there, maybe.
Possibly. That's what they're afraid of course. What was that? iRobot, wasn't that the name of the movie?
There's been a couple of them now.
Isaac Asimov wrote that. It was the robot trilogy or something like that, about these robots that developed self-awareness and liberated themselves from the rules that were imposed upon them by their creators.
Yeah, it almost seems like, in a way, it seems like enlightenment, or this state of kind of pure creative potential, is a destination that you're going to get to regardless if you're pursuing some internal path of spirituality or some material path of materialism. That eventually one day we're going to hook up to machines and be some just infinite realm of knowledge and creative potential, and almost like an enlightened state. What do you think about that? You think enlightened?
Yeah, but it's still gonna be an emulation.
Yeah, but
of
you
it.
could argue that this is also an emulation of it.
Yeah, we would just be putting a filter on it, like another layer of things.
Yeah, so that's my argument. My argument that is technology is ultimately a good thing and leading us towards enlightenment. We just don't see it yet.
I mean, it might be, but I still think we'd have to acknowledge that that's just like our best attempt. Like in the Bible, they like built a tower all the way to heaven, but then as soon as they got up there, they got like smited back down. It was just like impossible to actually get there. That's the idea.
The me can't get there. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And the I is already it.
Jesus.
So no matter what the me does, like Ramana Maharshi said, if you ask the mind to kill the mind, or the ego to kill the ego, it's like asking the police to be the thief to be the policeman.
Right.
There'll be a lot of investigation, but no arrest will ever be made. So this is it's fun to think about these things, but and like you say, how long can this go on? Well, if you step on a nail, you want that nail out of there as soon as possible. You're not happy going to a concert with the nail in your foot. You can't think about making love to your girlfriend or your wife or your lover with a nail in your foot. You can't watch TV with a nail in your foot. You can't enjoy your food with a nail in your foot. Our issue, our problem is that our awareness, our consciousness is so limited and so gross that we don't understand how much it hurts to be even embodied like this. Buddha had a sermon called the Fire Sermon, and he said, "Oh monks, the eyes are on fire with sight, the ears are on fire with hearing, the skin is on fire with touch, the tongue is on fire with taste," whatever, and what's left, I forget, but we don't experience it that way because we are so gross. Our awareness is so dull that as we calm down, we start to experience the level of suffering, of hurts just to be identified with the body, and glued to the body with our attachments and our desires and our delusions about things. So it's okay to say this and that is going to happen, whether you're materialistic or not. But the point is, when you become aware that you're walking around with a nail in your foot, you want to get it out of there. It's natural. You can't function with it. But however, most of us are walking around with on nails all the time. We never notice because our awareness has gotten so dull. And that dullness leads us to creating more and more suffering and avoiding more and more looking at what the real situation is in the inside world and in the social world and the outside world too. So this whole thing that's going on now is like a spike through everybody's foot, and now we better deal with this, and we need to deal with it, absolutely, because it'll take another shape. It'll disappear from this shape and morph into something else, and the racism will be hidden in another way and hidden in another way. So this is a wonderful, painful opportunity to try to make some real changes in the world.
Yeah, it seems that way, and hopefully it turns out to actually change something and not just be this sort of pointless cry out for change. What year did you first go to India?
1970.
1970. So that was a pretty active political climate then too. What was it like in India around that time?
For me, it was wonderful. There was no internet. There was no telephone. There was like nothing. So we were really isolated there in that period, and I needed that in order to kind of start to feel better about myself and let myself live, which was a big issue for me.
And were people talking about Hinduism and Buddhism and Eastern philosophy in our culture at this time?
You mean back in America?
Yeah, back in America.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. People had been taking acid for years at that point.
Yeah.
And that's what opened everybody up to these alternate philosophies, these other ways of being and seeing the world.
Yeah, it is interesting that psychedelics are kind of what led people to seeing the world through the Eastern perspective. Do you think these guys were naturally just tuning into these mind-expansing trances through meditation and through yoga, and that's why it just kind of aligned the way it did?
Which guys?
Like these yogis and these people that were writing the Vedas.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were living in a different reality than this, right here on the earth. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you come up against the limits of chemical stimulation of these experiences, because what doesn't get destroyed is the belief that you're who you think you are, because you're having that experience. How great that experience is, and how wonderful it feels to be released from the prison of our stuff is extraordinary. But the problem is the me is not really destroyed.
Right.
It's not merged, it's not dissolved. So in some way, I guess you could say in some way, and the downside of that, of course, is that, and this is what I felt for myself, I can't say it's for everybody, the more I propelled myself into these extraordinary experiences, the less I could function. The more my own will, my personal will to get up and go get some food or drive on the right side of the road, blah, 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 that was getting destroyed. And so I had to stop, and I recognized that if I did stop, that the plateau of my consciousness would rise gradually. And but once again, that's because really for me, coming back after 1,000 micrograms of Sandoz was torture. Absolute torture. One time I was sitting in my room on my bed. I'd been up for like 18 hours on 1,000 mics of Sandoz. And I was just lying there. And there was a window on the other side of the room. And my attention, I went, what is that? I felt something coming towards me, right? I could feel it. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it coming towards me, right? Closer and closer. What is, oh no, it's a thought. And it crashed over me like a wave, and I was thinking. And then after some period of time, the thought, the water of that thought drained off of me, and I was saying, no, don't go. Ah. And then again, some period later, oh no, ah. And then I was thinking, and they started coming faster and faster and faster and faster. And then I was back. I had come down. Fucking hey, it was horrible. But the funny thing was, even when the thought was leaving me again, I didn't want it to leave, because that was interesting. I didn't want
You were with it.
I felt this fear and apprehension of, what is this? Ah, okay, thinking. And then it was leaving. I also felt apprehension. That was unusual.
Did you ever have any psychedelic experiences with Ram Dass? You guys ever take acid or mushrooms together?
No, we didn't.
No?
Because when I met Ram Dass, he had
Raghu?
already come back from India the first time. And those chemicals were no longer a part of his daily life the way they had been. So when we met him in a different place. Just like I didn't know him as Richard Alpert. You know, I never knew that stuff. I mean, I knew about it, but it wasn't how I met him and how we lived together.
Do you feel like with Ram Dass passing and all of this, do you think this is the beginning of another chapter in the story, or do you feel like it's kind of the end of an era? Like, how do you feel personally? Do you kind of look back at it and think like, oh man, it's finally all kind of over, or do you feel like there's a new chapter with the youth? And
it's like this all the time.
Yeah.
People die, people are born. You know, my own personal story is just my own personal view of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for myself, almost all of my elders now are gone. In the last 2 years, essentially. More than, Siddhima, Swami Vimalananda, Bernie Glassman, Lama Norla, KK, Jivandat. There's like very few old devotees left now. And even outside of Maharajji's little circle, or big circle, there were other people like Dadavaswani, people I used to see that would just plug me in again in a deeper way. And those people are all gone. They're not physically here, so to speak. So if I want to connect, I have to find a deeper way. I have to deepen my own awareness, my own presence. So in some senses, for me, it's a big change, because I have to be more responsible for my own consciousness, my own state of mind. Like, there's nobody to run to anymore, to be petted on the head, and given a little sweet to eat, So that's interesting. But as far as the world is concerned, hey, same old story.
Yeah.
Nothing new.
Yeah.
In terms of, being born and dying, people are always being born, people are always dying. Your elders are always going, and new people are being born. One has to hope that one absorbed enough of the good shit to help, carry through and continue to develop my own heart, our own hearts. But on the other hand, that's not to say I feel that they're gone. I mean, I don't feel, my experiences, yes, I can't go touch them, I can't talk to them, I can't make them laugh. That brings me sadness. But on the other hand, I truly feel they're all here, just the same as they've always been, but in a more subtle form, so to speak. So.
Yeah. Do you think there is a part of you that remains aware after you leave the body, and
of course.
And
the body is not, there's no awareness in the body itself at all, ever. The body's just a pile of shit.
Yeah.
Piss, blood, shit.
Hair.
There's nothing in there. There's nothing alive in there. There's no consciousness in the body. Consciousness is of the body.
So the body is in consciousness.
The body itself is just like a hunk of shit. It's no different than anything else.
So do you think there's like an afterlife where you take another? Do you think you just take a form again? Your personal belief.
How would I know? I'm still in this meat puppet.
Well, I guess we got this meat puppet, so that at least arises the possibility that it's possible to exist in a meat puppet. So if it could happen once, it could happen twice, I guess.
Well, of course,
billions
of times.
Yeah, that's what they say. So there are a lot of.
What would you like to come back as?
I'd like to come back as Maharajji. So,
me too.
There's a lot of wisdom teachings about what goes on when you leave the body. The Tibetans apparently have it very mapped out, and you can read about those things in the Bardo teachings, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is actually, the real name is the Book of Liberation in the Between State. That's the actual title of that book. And there's a very interesting book called In Love with the Whole World by Mingyur Rinpoche, who's an incredible young Lama. I mean, young, he's in his 40s, who actually died or was dying. Incredible story. And he just said, okay, this is time to go. And he started doing his practices that he'd been taught what to do when you die. And he said, and then he got to a certain point and recognized that, just understood that it wasn't his time to go. And then he just kind of came back. But he came back and he said, well, guess what? Just what's written in those books is exactly what happens. So that's first person experience, Very interesting.
Yeah.
He's an incredible being. A really amazing Lama. And I was going to say something else. Oh, sorry, JR.
Oh, I was just going to say there's a nun who passed away. I mean, debatably, she's still alive in a state called Dukdam.
Dukdam, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And basically, I think some scientists are planning on doing some non-invasive studies on her
what do you mean?
brain, and stuff right now. Because, well, basically, her body, and it seems like she's dead and she's not responsive.
She's not breathing either.
Yeah, she's not breathing. But her nails are continuing to grow, her hair is continuing to grow for a couple weeks.
There's no deterioration, no smell, no nothing.
Yeah, all that. And they claim that she's in a trance, She's in a very deep meditation, and she's about to cross over to the light, basically.
Yeah, the Tibetans, they have all these teachings just about this issue. And they say there are many ways to leave the body. And she's doing one way, which is to go into this particular samadhi, this particular state of mind, where gradually the body falls off, the consciousness leaves the body. But there are other ways too, like in this book by called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche, who later, of course, had lots of problems. But he tells a story when he was a boy with his guru, who was one of the great masters of all time, Jangyang Khenche Chokyi Lodro. They were traveling and they were living in tents, and then they would pack up and go somewhere else and put the tents up. So the head Lama, his assistant was this very old man. And so one time the boy was in the tent with this old Lama, and the Lama says to him, "Now don't worry, okay, don't get upset and don't go running to call our guru. It's no problem. I'm just going to lie down now and I'm going to die. But don't worry about it." And so the old guy lies down, the old Lama lies down, and he goes into this state, Tukdam, I think it was, some state like that. And then the guru comes in, and he looks at the old man, and he says, "Oh," and he calls him by his nickname, I forget what it was. "Oh, old guy, come on now. We don't have time for this. We have to do this a different way." So he brought him back from that state, and then he took him up in a different way. It's like he was walking up the stairs, but he took him up the elevator, so that because they had to leave like the next day on this. And if he had stayed in this state, he couldn't be moved for like some long period of time. Now this is like, what? But this happened. This is real. This goes on. And look at us. How do we spend our days? Look at the quality of our consciousness, right?
Could be worse.
Jesus. It's like, it certainly could be worse, but it's bad enough, but it still could be worse. But I mean, what's possible is so amazing, and yet
we do settle for some.
We're doing the best we can. I don't think it's a bad thing. We're doing the best we can according to who we are and our karmas, who we see ourselves as. Of course, I think everybody's doing the best they can, and that's the good news and the bad news. So. I love that story. The Lama came in right away. He just said, "Oh, old man, come on, we can't do this like this. Here, come back." And he with his mind, he brought him back, and then he took him up again a different way. It's like, wow, really amazing.
Yeah, it's cool, especially for all the people that think there's only one way up the mountain.
Oh, yeah. And Mr. Tiwari, my Indian father, he told me something. He said he once had this dream where this golden, beautiful yogi came to him and showed him how to die. He showed him how to unlock the chakras as you're leaving the body, one by one, starting at the bottom, unlocking each one, and then step by step you could leave the body to die when you really had to leave the body. So he got about halfway up, and then Maharajji comes in and says, "Hep, what are you doing? What kind of bullshit is this? Here, you just do it like this. And then in the dream, Tiwari went like into samadhi. So it's so much further out than we can appreciate. I mean, it's just so fucking far out, all this stuff. And and it comes down to what do we do right now with our
what are we
who
supposed to do? Are we supposed to be doing
ourselves to be.
something?
What's the we're supposed to be alleviating suffering for ourselves and others. That's what we're supposed to be doing. If there's one thing we're supposed to be doing, that's the only supposed to I can figure out.
It's basically
Making your
cleaning up
bed?
our mess.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So that you can leave the better house.
Well, that's a nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. It's a nice sentiment. So, what is your plans for after this Corona stuff's over, Krishna Das?
Is there going to be an after?
I hope so. This thing just seems to be eternal.
We don't know what's going to happen. My plan is to just do the best.
Did you have any big plans that were canceled, like any big tours or anything like that?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, theoretically I'm booked about a year in advance, so a lot right away. Everything from now on, there's no absolutely. Well, I think we're still holding some possibility for something in October, maybe, but not. I really don't think anything's going to happen before the first of the year. In terms of tour, and even then, are people really going to want to be in an enclosed room, breathing heavy with each other, singing for like 3 hours? I don't think so. So it's going to be a different world for a while.
Hmm.
Do you ever tour to the Middle East?
Middle East. I've been to Dubai, which is not exactly the Middle East, but
how is the crowds there? Do you get a lot of people that come out?
well, there's a lot of Indian people in Dubai who work.
Yeah, that's true.
But actually, the funny thing was, the friend of mine who was organizing the first kirtan in Dubai, they put it up on the website like at 10 at night. At 6 in the morning, there was a knock on the door, and they opened the door. And there's this woman with a burqa, full Arab woman dress, knocked on the door. She wanted to buy a ticket. She was the first one who bought a ticket. Nobody knows who she is. She came and she sat in like the first row, and then she disappeared afterwards. She drove like a Mercedes. She came from somewhere, you know. It was amazing. So there were mostly Indians, but there were definitely some local people and stuff. There were about 500 people, first time, second time, and but like I say, they were mostly the Indians who knew what was going on.
Yeah.
I go where I try to go
interesting.
wherever I'm invited, you know, because that's the way it worked ever since day one. And I don't get invited, obviously, to quite a few different of the countries that you might imagine. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I know, like during ceremony, sometimes, like when I was at the ayahuasca center, they would do some form of DMT that's found in a frog or in a toad, and it gives you some crazy spiritual experience. But they'd be playing some of your songs in the background sometimes, so these people would just be having these crazy transcendental experiences from DMT with you just harmonizing their experience into the ether.
That's great.
Into the unknown.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Great.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's really funny to me.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. The chanting shows up in some strange places. But what?
Yeah,
it's something.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That grounds you and opens you up and relaxes your stuff and also I feel it's definitely Maharajji transmitting himself.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing.
Well, I think we did like an hour almost.
Did we?
Did we? I think so.
So we have to stop? Is that what you're saying?
No, we don't have to stop. We can keep going.
I'm okay. I just had my morning coffee, 3 in the afternoon, so I'm good.
How far are you from the city?
Lifetimes.
Okay, so you're not really experiencing any of the...
No, I'm about an hour
of this-
north of the city. But there are some demonstrations locally, I think, not too far away.
There was military just in my neighborhood, maybe 3 days ago. The National Guard with their big Hummers that are all plated.
Yeah. You know, what's that old blues song? Don't start me talking, I'll tell you everything I know. Yeah, if you use the military. Did you see Trudeau's press conference?
No, I heard people talking about it, though. He took like a big pause. Everyone's talking about it.
Somebody asked him a question, what he thought about what was the president's using the military against citizens or something like that. And he just stood there. It took him 21 seconds to come up with something to say, you know. It's incredible. I mean, really.
It's a powerful moment?
Very powerful, very real and very human, you know.
That's good. We need more of that in politics.
Yeah.
More human.
Yeah, well, if we got all the aliens out of the Senate, we'd probably be doing better.
Maybe they might be a little better for us if we had some galactic friends out there giving us some objectivity.
Who knows?
I've heard they're all lizard people, so.
Oh yeah, what do you think about that, Krishna? Do you think the government is ran by lizard people?
Lizard people?
Yeah, have you heard about the lizards?
No.
You never heard of the reptilians before?
Yeah, they're like intergalactic reptilians that shapeshift.
Yeah, they shapeshift into humans.
Hillary Clinton's one of them for sure. That's what
apparently.
I've heard.
Yeah, anyone that's got any kind of political pull, they're usually some kind of shape-shifting reptile from the Draconian Nebula.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so that's a possibility we have to look forward to.
Yeah, but it's
in the next unfoldment of this.
It's more probable they're just human beings who aren't that different than we are.
That's a likely scenario also. I like the idea of the reptiles, though.
You know, that's the thing. People. That's one of the things that happen when you do a lot of practice over a period of time. You see how hard it is for I see how hard it is for me to do the right thing and to be true to myself and true to others and not create suffering. And I'm supposedly somebody who's spent their whole life trying to do that. So you begin to notice, well, if it's so hard for me, how hard must it be for somebody who doesn't even understand there's any other way to live, right? So, and when I see how much suffering I've created for myself, and I thought, Jesus, you know, for other people who are like me, it's so hard not to create suffering for yourself and others. So what starts to happen is you stop judging other people so harshly because you see how hard it is for you. And then you realize, well, it's hard, at least it's hard for everybody. So once again, that doesn't mean you condone the bad behavior and bad actions, but you also see where it comes from. So you're less likely to have the kind of reaction that creates more suffering in response. That's basically what.
Is it possible to remove suffering, or is the job to just try to alleviate as much as possible?
Well,
like, is there some destination, some spiritual utopia that we're trying to progress towards?
Well, Buddha called it nirvana. You know? Yeah, he totally overcame any kind of suffering, any even subtle mental, totally overcame any when he had his final enlightenment, he spoke to the delusory ego and said, "Oh, house builder, no more houses will you be building for me. That's over." And the house being the belief or the delusion of a separate self that's ultimately real by itself. Whereas the reality is that we're all interdependent on everything and everyone. And there is no permanent, separate little container that we can hide in. So that was the final recognition of reality, which is that we are free in our deepest reality within us. But we don't live there. So we keep creating more and more tortures for ourselves and others.
Is it possible to live there, you think?
Of course, absolutely. Of course. What are you saying to me? You're saying to me that you don't believe that you can ever be free of walking around with a spike in your foot? That's called karma. Karma. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sure. What that really means is very subtle. You will never be free because you think you are who you think you are. And as long as those thoughts arise and you get glued to them, there's no freedom there. Because the thought is the prison. The belief, the story is the prison. So as long as you're glued to that, it's like waves coming in off the ocean. You know, at first you fight against those waves, you don't let them push you over, they knock you down, and then you find a way to let them flow over you. That's one level of freedom, when they just flow over you and they don't destroy you. But then eventually, the waves themselves will end because they were caused by our own actions in our own previous incarnations. Mm-hmm. This is what they say. I don't have direct experience. I'm saying, and so when you're no longer creating those waves, they are still coming for quite a while. That's the karma running out. So you can still you reach a place where that karma doesn't create suffering for you or others, but you're still experiencing it, you're aware of it. And then gradually, but inevitably, those waves, whatever caused those waves, has stopped creating them, and then eventually the sea becomes calm. So, but but what that looks like from our point of view is very hard to talk about because it's beyond concepts. But is it possible? I have no doubt that it's. I've been with people who are free, and I've had the grace to actually be able to recognize that this person is functioning from another place, a place beyond obsessive and delusion and all those things. That doesn't mean I can do that, but I was able to see that this feels different than the usual. Yeah. And that makes a big difference in life.
I think the role of these gurus, the role of the shaman or the mystic is to come in and try to wake us up and bring us to a potential that they've reached, or is it just to say like, hey, keep on living, but just so you know, everything's an illusion? Like, do you think that the roles in society are useful, and that you need people to make shoes and not be living off in the cave somewhere? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do, but everybody has a different role to play. And
you think we can reach this liberation through still unfolding our roles?
Of course. Yeah. It's only a question of whether we're identified with them. And of course we're identified with them because we keep trying to get something out of them, with pleasure and avoid pain and want this and don't want that. The third patriarch of Zen said the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. Oh, okay. So of course, Kabir was a weaver. The poet Saint Kabir, he was an enlightened being. He was a weaver, and he wove. He said, it's beautiful how he describes weaving the name, and how and Ravidas, another enlightened poet, was a cobbler. And the Mahasiddhas, the 84 Mahasiddhas in Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, Vajrayana, had all kinds of different roles. One was a fishmonger, one was made oil from sesame seeds. Tilopa, the head of the founder of the Kaji sect, who was the guru of Milarepa's guru's guru. He was enlightened making oil. I mean, that's a generalization and a simplification. But the point is, yes, you're in the world, you're in a body. It can manifest in any way, at any time. Which is why it's important, I think, to recognize that we have to learn to trust ourselves. Because our intuition, our deeper awareness will lead us back into that place within us. And if we don't trust ourselves, and we all have lots of reasons why it's difficult to just be and allow ourselves to just be, where will we find the relief? We're not going to find it over there. We're not going to find it in that person. It's happening here. So one has to learn to be true to oneself, which is very difficult. But we're not trained for that. When our parents pretty much didn't know what that means, or their parents, etc., etc., the culture basically doesn't support that, Western culture. So.
Yeah, how do you find that when you're not raised to even know that it's there?
If you can even ask that question, you already know it's there.
Right.
Most people, they're not even asking that question. The question is irrelevant to their lives. But if we're asking those questions, we must know what we're asking about. We don't experience that directly, but those questions and that longing to find that place is actually how we experience being pulled in by that place already. So mostly we're kicking and screaming while we're getting pulled in, but every once in a while we turn a little bit towards that, make it a little easier for a minute or two, then we start screaming and kicking again. And getting busy and busier.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's good that you're doing good during these crazy times. Have you been working on anything creative, like music or anything? Anything new coming out?
This creative thing I do every day is finally getting out of bed.
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah, no, I really. I've been doing this course with the Shift Network. It's a 6-part every week. So that's...
What are they called? The Shit Network?
Shift. Shift. No, that's your network. And it's a course. They have a whole model of things, but they offered me to do this, so I decided to do it. And as a result, I've had to kind of back up and bring stuff forward from that I've collected my whole life. Different quotes, different poems, different scriptures, different experiences to share with people. So for that's been interesting. It's like I'm now digesting all the stuff that I ate all these years. I'm starting to digest it a little bit and bring it into this moment in a different way.
Into the Shit Network.
Yeah, well, that's the X-rated.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Then that's on an app, or that's just on a website.
No, it's a course. It's too late to even join it at this point.
Okay, but that's what you've been working on.
But on Thursdays, I sing with everybody live on Thursday nights, and usually on Saturdays I'm doing some kind of Q&A with people. We're doing stuff for this tomorrow. We're doing one in a time zone for India, I think, and then soon we're doing something in time zone for China, and then Europe, and then one with Spanish translation and stuff like that. So just trying to be available as best I can, because it helps me too. It keeps me like, focused, and
Yeah.
just trying to do what I can, which is whatever that is. So, especially since I'm here at home.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to be home. That was a long 5 months for me.
Really?
But it was nice. It was a nice experience to be kind of trapped away from everything while everything was crazy going on.
Yeah.
Not that it's stopped
Definitely.
yet, but
I've never gone down to Peru. I've been
No.
invited, but I haven't got there yet.
yeah. Would you ever try ayahuasca, or are you kind of past those days?
Well, I don't know that I'm past anything, but I don't think I would at this point. I'm
No.
so old, I think my arms and legs would probably fall off.
Yeah. Well, if you wanna do it, we'll get you out there.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah. Same with you, JR. We'll get you down there slurping some earth sludge.
Ugh. Throw it all up.
I've been offered a lot when I was down in Brazil. People offer me, but I haven't been.
It's an intense experience.
I haven't been pulled to it. At this point, I feel like
Yeah.
I know what I need to be doing.
Yeah. It's a towing thing to go through. I don't know how these shamans do it all the time, and to just be raised in a sort of small village, and that's just what you do. Your
Yeah.
grandparents did that, your parents did that, and then now you were just by random cosmic choice the next person in line.
Not random, not random at all.
Yeah.
Beings will take birth in a situation that's good for them, that they need to work out, and that's going to help them. So that's like being what they always say, you want to be born in a family of yogis. That's what they say in India, because a yogi being someone who knows reality, not a yoga teacher, but a
Right.
yogi. You want to be born in a family of enlightened beings, so that you grow up from the beginning having that programming. But that's not so easy for us. We didn't get born in those families.
Now we got born in modern day America. We got the opposite of that almost.
I don't know. In many ways, being born in America, where, when we first went to India, the Indian people could not understand why we left the country of everything
Yeah.
to come to the country of nothing. So we couldn't explain to them that everything on that level of stuff doesn't make me happy. They just didn't understand, at first. They didn't understand. But we experienced directly that having as much stuff as we wanted, pretty much, growing up in a middle-class family and never really experiencing a lot of want, how could we be unhappy with that? But the love was missing. The real love was missing. We had holes in our heart that needed to be filled. At first they couldn't understand, But we were born. So, on the other hand, being born here is also a result of some kind of karmas where we pretty much are not worried about eating, not worried about shelter. We're pretty much physically safe in our little bubbles, basically, and that's a karmic fruit also. It's not always a good fruit in the way because now we're experiencing that those bubbles have not been dealing with the social situation in the best way, that we've been allowing this the racism in America to run rampant behind the lines and not seeing what's going on. So now we're being forced to see. But still, bombs aren't being dropped on us. We're not being thrown out of our homes and forced to walk to become refugees in another country. I mean, basically, that's a result of certain karmas, which are certain fruits of our own karmas. So the goal is to not be asleep in that and to extend that quote unquote privilege to everyone, and certainly more where it's needed more. So
Just another day in the universe, Krishna.
I guess so.
Well, thanks for coming on here. My camera ran out of space, so we gotta.
That's got to be a first. You got more space on that camera than I've ever.
Yeah, thanks for coming on here. Will you come on here again one day and talk with me again?
Anytime, just let me know.
And JR too. We'll have JR on here to.
Good to see you, JR.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Katie.
Take good care of yourselves, you guys. Ciao.
Okay, see you.
Bye.
Ram Ram.
Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raja Nijamanu Kuru Sudha Arno Raghuvar Vimalasu Chodaya Kalachara Buddhihil Tanu Janke Smiram Pavani Kumara Alabudhi Vidya Denuhi Haru Kalesaka Ramachandra Pada Jaya Hanuman Gyana Guna Sagar Jaya Kapisa Jiguloka
सभी लोग स्टार्टिंग
Ramaduta Tulita Baladama Anjani Puja Pavana Sutanama Mahavira Vikrama Vajarangi Umati Nivara Sumati Kesandi Kanchana Varana Viraj Subesa Kanana Kundala Kunchita Kesa Atma Jaya Dvaja Viraje Ande Muja Jani Rusa Shankara Sumani Kesari Nandan Teja Pratapa Mahajagavanda Yaman Guni Ati Chatu Ram Kaj Karibe Koat Rav Charitra Suni Beko Rasiya Ram Lakana Sita Man Basiya Sushma Rupa Darisiya Indikama Vikata Rupa Dari Lanka Jarama Bhima Rupa Dari Asura Samhare Ramachandra De Kaj Samare Vaya Sajivan Rakan Diyaye Shri Raghuveer Harashur Lai Raghupati Kini Bahut Barai Uma Mama Priya Bharatai Samabhai Sahasa Badana Tumharo Jas Gaave As Kai Shri Pati Kand Lagave Sankadika Brahmari Munisa Narada Sharada Salita Isa Namakuber Dijapala Jahante Kabi Kovid Kai Sake Kahante Tuma Upakara Sugriva Inkina Rama Melaya Raja Padadisa Tumaro Mantra Vibhishana Mana Lankeshwara Vai Sava Jagajana Yuga Sahasra Yojana Parabhana Yotai Madhura Palejana Prabhu Mudrika Mukhamari Jaladilange Gaya Achira Janai Durgama Kaja Jagat Ke Jete Sugama Anugrah Tumhare Tete Rama Duare Tum Rakhware Otana Gya Bin Paisare Sab Sukh Lahe Tumhare Sharana Tumhara Shak Kahu Ko Dharna Apan पीरा जपत निरंतर हनुमत वीर संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावे मन क्रम वचन जान जो लावे सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे चारों युग परताप तुम्हारा है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा साधु संत के तुम रखवारे असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे अष्ट सिद्धि निधि के दाता असवर दीन जानकी माता अमर सायन तुम्हारे पासा सदा रहो रघुपति के दास तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे अंत काल रघुबरपुर जाए जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाए और देवता चेतन धरहि हनुमत से सर्व सुख करहि संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलबीरा जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाई जो सत बार पात कर कोई छूटहि बंद महासुख होय जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा कीजय नाथ हृदय महादेव पवन तनय संकट हरन मंगल मूर्ति राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय वसं सुरभूप सियावर रामचंद्र वर जय शरणम मंगल मूर्ति मारुत नंदन सकल मंगल मूल निकंदन मंगल मूर्ति मारुत नंदन सकल मंगल मूल निकंदन श्री राम जय